Hello and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's start with the top stories that made headlines in the first week of October. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung and outgoing Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba met for what is likely their last summit in the port city of Busan. The two pledged closer cooperation on shared issues such as low birth rates and rural revitalization. October 1st marked Armed Forces Day in South Korea, the first since former President Yoon Suk-yeol was ousted over his failed attempt to impose martial law. President Lee Jae-myung attended the event where he vowed to build a strong and self-reliant military. South Korea's exports hit a record high in September, fueled by booming semiconductor sales, driven by surging demand for artificial intelligence systems, despite lingering concerns over stalled tariff talks with the U.S. President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba met in the southeastern city of Busan, hoping to bring their countries' ties closer. The leaders announced a joint consultative body to tackle their aging populations, among other issues. Our presidential office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
After around a month since their last talks in Tokyo, the leaders of the two neighbors sat down again, this time in South Korea's southeastern city of Busan. The summit began with a welcome ceremony by the Traditional Guard of Honor, presenting a procession of the centuries-old Joseon Tongsinsa diplomatic mission, a symbol of the long-standing exchanges between the two neighbors. It was more of a farewell meeting for Ishiba, but a message to continue cooperation was clear.
한국과 일본이 물리적으로 가까운 이 거리만큼 정서적으로도 경제적으로도 또 사회 문화적으로도 안보상으로나 정말로 가까워지길 바랍니다.
The sentiment was echoed by the Japanese leader.
I sincerely think that it's meaningful to conclude my last summit diplomacy with President Lee. I hope we can interact more often to yield more outcomes from our shuttle diplomacy.
President Lee Jae-myung and Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba announced a joint message to operate a joint consultative body on tackling population decline and revitalizing regions outside their respective capitals. Their focus was also on resuming their joint cooperative committee on science and technology, ways to cooperate for denuclearization of the peninsula, as well as partnership at a time of the fast-changing global trade order. The meeting was followed by a dinner, during which snowcraft from Ishiba's hometown of Totori Prefecture, as well as Korean galbijjim from Lee's hometown of Andong, and other dishes representing harmony. Ishiba is on a two-day visit to South Korea, which is his first and will be the last visit before he steps down as Prime Minister in October. It's the first time in 21 years that a Japanese leader is visiting a city other than Seoul for a bilateral summit. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Ishiba paid a visit to the grave of the late Lee Soo-hyun in Busan, a Korean student who sacrificed his life in 2001 to rescue a Japanese man who had fallen onto the tracks at a railway station in Tokyo. No other sitting Japanese prime minister has done so. Meantime, First Lady Kim Hae-kyung has been diagnosed with an ear disease causing dizziness and was unable to attend the meeting. What's key from here is how to carry on bilateral cooperation with a looming leadership change in Japan at a time of rising global uncertainty in politics and trade. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Busan.
South Korea is hosting Japan and China as the three nations look to modernize their civil services for future generations. Our National Assembly correspondent Moon Hye-ryun has the details.
Korea, Japan and China are joining forces to shape the future of their civil services. That mission brought senior officials to Seoul for the 10th Heads of Personnel Authorities meeting of China, Japan and Korea, held in Korea for the first time in a decade. Marking the 20th anniversary of their trilateral personnel network, the two-day event focuses on innovation in personnel administration for future generations, highlighting the need to modernize systems in a rapidly changing world. As host, Korea stressed the meeting is about more than policy, it's about people.
Public service is about serving the people. To do that well, we need to ask what steps should be taken, and that's the focus of this agenda. We are especially looking at what the younger generation of civil servants are thinking and how we can better support them going forward.
Over the past 2 decades, the network has become one of the few ministerial-level mechanisms among the 3 countries that has consistently fostered cooperation. Officials say that legacy is worth protecting, but also needs to evolve.
All of our countries face the same challenge of rapidly changing demographics, and we need smart ways to address it. Another major issue is the digital transformation, with AI and emerging industries like crypto developing differently in each nation. The goal is to tackle these challenges together, finding solutions through trilateral cooperation and building a brighter future for all 3 countries.
For Korea, officials say their role is not just to participate, but to lead by example, particularly in working conditions for civil servants.
Many frontline officials face stress in disaster situations, so we're also creating institutional measures to protect their mental health and help them stay motivated to serve the people.
As the 3 countries mark 2 decades of cooperation, the meeting in Seoul is not just a reflection of how far they have come, but a signal of their shared determination to prepare public institutions and the people within them for the generations to come. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington launched a bilateral working group on business visas and visits, taking the first step to ensure Korean workers involved in major U.S. investment projects can enter without disruption. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Seong reports.
Seoul and Washington have agreed to clarify the rules for U.S. business visas in a move to ensure the smooth entry of Korean professionals driving multi-billion-dollar investment projects in the United States. The 2 governments launched their first bilateral visa working group in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday local time, responding to the visa bottlenecks that led to the week-long detention of more than 300 Koreans connected to a Hyundai LG battery plant in Georgia last month. Of those arrested, 170 were on short-term ESTA travel visas and 146 were on B1 or B2 visas. While they were released after a week, their detainment was highly questionable as US State Department rules allow B1 holders to train local staff and install equipment. At the working group's first meeting, the 2 sides confirmed that B1 visa holders are permitted to install, service and repair imported equipment. The US also reaffirmed that ESTA travelers are allowed to perform the same activities as B1 holders. To remove ambiguity, both governments will soon release a joint fact sheet outlining the scope of permissible tasks. The 2 sides further agreed to install a Korean investor desk inside the US Embassy in Seoul to serve as an access point for Korean companies investing in the US and help resolve visa issues quickly. Direct contact points will also be established between Korean consulates and US immigration agencies for close coordination. Beyond these measures, South Korea raised the need for institutional improvements. Australia and Singapore, for instance, have dedicated visa tracks for the entry of skilled workers to America. Washington cited immediate legislative hurdles, but pledged to continue reviewing possible long-term improvements. US President Donald Trump, along with local officials and experts, have stressed the need to keep Korean workers on site, given their role in setting up massive high-tech factories in America. However, with US regulations murky and many skilled workers hesitant to return to the US after the mass detention in Georgia, Korean firms have raised the need for clear and reliable measures to keep America a trusted investment destination.
Despite turbulence brought by the Trump administration, the broader U.S. political establishment continues to see strong ties with Korea as vital. Militarily and diplomatically, Korea remains central to America's East Asia strategy, so this should be emphasized and leveraged in consultations. Economically, Korea is a leader in key industries, like chips and batteries, is expanding major manufacturing investments in the U.S. Korea's strengths in defense, shipbuilding, and advanced technology should be maximized to secure favorable terms in U.S. visa programs and broader economic cooperation.
Seoul officials say fundamental solutions are needed if Korean firms are to deliver their multi-billion-dollar commitments to the US economy. The new working group agreed to meet again at the earliest possible date to continue their consultations. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
This week, South Korea celebrated the 77th anniversary of the founding of its armed forces. For more on this, we invite our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung into the studio. Welcome, Bo-kyung.
Thank you for having me.
To start us off, can you give us an overview of the event, where it took place, and what kinds of events or performances were showcased?
Right. So first of all, this was the very first Armed Forces Day celebrated under Lee Jae-myung administration. Marking the 77th anniversary of the founding of South Korea's armed forces, this year's event took place at the military headquarters at Gaeryong, Chungcheongnam province. Under the theme on advanced armed forces together with the people, fewer than 1,000 service members participated in the ceremony along with a display of about 100 pieces of equipment. President Lee entered the reviewing stand with 7 people's representatives and exemplary service members, and he awarded medals and citations to personnel and units after the military review. A notable part of the ceremony was a joint civilian-military taekwondo demonstration showing how the ceremony underlined being with people, which was followed by a flypast of rotary and fixed-wing aircraft formations, along with the Air Force's Black Eagles aerobatic team carrying out advanced maneuvers. Take a listen to what participants of the ceremony had to say.
It was an honor to be able to perform in front of the soldiers who protect our country, and it allowed me to feel an even deeper sense of patriotism.
It is an honor to take part in the 77th Armed Forces Day. As a future combat capabilities unit, we will serve with dedication to ensure our people's safety.
So as I mentioned previously, the ceremony was noticeably scaled down compared to previous ones. So just how much smaller was this year's?
Right, it was very much smaller in size compared to previous ones. For the 1.5-hour event, fewer than 1,000 personnel took part, just 1/5 the size of last year's that involved around 5,000. Around 100 pieces of equipment, including K2 tanks, Cheonmu multiple rocket systems, were on display. South Korea's domestically developed bunker buster missile, the Hyunmoo-5, and multi-purpose stealth drone were also showcased. But this again was significantly smaller than last year's total numbers of equipment, which was over 300. Even the budget for this year's event was just about a third of last year's 7.2 billion Korean won, according to the Armed Forces Day planning team. The most noticeable difference was the absence of a city parade. Under the Yoon administration, a parade was held in central Seoul for 2 consecutive years in 2023 and 2024, and the day was even designated as a temporary public holiday last year. Considering the fact that the parade is usually held once every 5 years and none took place under the Moon Jae-in administration, the Yoon government's decision was indeed quite rare. But the fact that this year's did not have the city parade made it look much more downscaled. One expert said, however, that this was natural, given it was the first Armed Forces Day ceremony following former ousted President Yoon Suk-yeol's botched imposition of martial law, and that despite the smaller scale, the president's message was quite strong and clear.
He emphasized on the not just scale or new weapon system, but rather focusing on the its message, especially to the world and to domestic audience, on how ROK Army became the more independent forces and global stage forces capability based on the its K defense industry, also open transfer plan, and definitely as well as ROK-US alliance system.
Right, so before we wrap up, let's touch on some of the comments that were made by the defense minister at a recent press briefing. So what were some things that were said?
Right, so Defense Chief An Kyu-baek held talks with Defense Ministry reporters this week, and there he shared his thoughts on a variety of issues. Regarding the transfer of wartime operational control, he said the process is going on systematically, stably, and proactively, and that South Korea and the U.S. will continue consulting to secure the necessary capabilities as soon as possible to complete the verification. There were also some questions on the possibility of a U.S. forces Korea withdrawal, to which he replied that there has been no discussion whatsoever over the forces withdrawal nor a reduction, and that Washington fully shares the view with Seoul that a stable USFK stationing was important for peace on the Korean Peninsula. When it comes to the September 19th military agreement, the minister said restoring this should be done through dialogue, and that the South Korean military would not unilaterally halt its exercises.
All right, thank you, Bo-kyung, for coming in today.
Thank you.
The U.S. Navy's oldest active-duty warship, the USS Blue Ridge, has docked in Busan for the first time in more than 5 years, a port call underscoring the strength of the South Korea-U.S. alliance. The visit also comes on the heels of the trilateral multi-domain Freedom Edge exercise. Our Kim Bo-kyung, who's among a select group of reporters invited to visit the ship, takes us aboard.
Docked in the port city of Busan is a rare view of a ship, the USS Blue Ridge, the command ship for the U.S. 7th Fleet since 1979. Commissioned in 1970, the ship operates out of its home port at Yokosuka, Japan, overseeing waters around the Korean Peninsula as well as parts of the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean. Flying the first Navy Jack flag, symbolizing the oldest active-duty U.S. Navy ship, this 19,600-ton ship has been fully deployed for her entire life, not once entering American waters other than Guam. A handful of reporters who were invited onto the ship to mark its first visit to Busan in more than 5 years were able to witness the ship bearing the marks of time but still boasting a formidable presence. I'm currently standing on the helipad of the USS Blue Ridge next to a MH-60 Sierra helicopter used for search and rescue missions. This helicopter actually participated in the recent Freedom Edge exercise.
Through the Freedom Edge training, we strengthened our joint maritime operational skills. The port call also provided an opportunity for enhanced cooperation among our Joint Operations Command teams, further improving our joint operational capabilities.
Calling the ROK-US alliance a phenomenal relationship and cornerstone of both peace and stability in Northeast Asia, the commanding officer underlined that the recent joint exercise was more than just a drill.
These exercises have forged unbreakable ties, and the bonds are a commitment to our allies and other countries to ensure an open and free Indo-Pacific. One of the things that I will never forget during my career is looking behind and seeing the flags waving of both the Republic of Korean Navy and the Japanese with the U.S. flag as well.
USS Blue Ridge is soon to set sail from Busan port, but two navies' willingness to strengthen their joint defense posture can be seen through such visits. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Busan.
For the month of September, South Korea's exports grew to an all-time high on the back of chips and auto shipments despite U.S. tariffs. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the details.
South Korea's exports set a new record in September, reaching $65.95 billion, a 12.7% increase year-on-year. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Wednesday, this all-time high surpasses the previous record from March 2022 and marks the fourth consecutive month of export growth. Third quarter exports also set a new record at $185.03 billion.
Among the 15 major export items, 10 saw increases, including semiconductors, automobiles, and biohealth. Industries with strong technological foundations, particularly within the country's key export sectors, are successfully capitalizing on current market conditions. Specifically, in the semiconductor industry, high-value added memory chips for AI servers are recording significant growth, driven by robust demand.
Semiconductor exports reached a new all-time high of $16.61 billion, a 22% increase on year, driven by demand for high-value memory products for AI. Automobile exports recorded their best September ever at $6.4 billion, up 16.8% on year, with growth in all vehicle types. Biohealth, ships, and general machinery also saw significant growth. On the other hand, petrochemical and steel exports declined by 2.8% and 4.2% respectively due to lower global unit prices. As for regions, all but U.S. exports saw increases. While exports to the U.S. decreased by 1.4% due to imposed tariffs, shipments to China increased by 0.5%, returning to growth for the first time in 4 months. Exports to the EU reached an all-time high of $7.16 billion, a 19.3% increase, and exports to ASEAN hit a September record of $11.06 billion, up 17.8%. The government says this is a trend that is likely to continue and it won't miss the opportunity.
While the favourable export performance in September was partly due to an increase of 4 working days, we believe it is crucial not to overlook the underlying structural changes and trends. It is anticipated that this trend could continue through the end of the year.
After this, a trade surplus of $9.56 billion is the largest in 7 years. The cumulative trade surplus for the first 9 months of the year stands at $50.47 billion. 김도현, Arirang News.
From fruits to meat and vegetables, Chuseok shopping is in full swing, but so are concerns over rising costs. So what are prices looking like this holiday season?
With a 7-day national holiday coming up, South Korea's consumer prices went back up to the 2% range. The Ministry of Data and Statistics said on Thursday that consumer prices rose 2.1% in September compared to a year earlier. The figure is a return to the 2% range after a temporary dip in August, which was attributed to a one-off mobile phone carrier discount promotion. The government says it is working to ease the burden on consumers.
The Chuseok holiday begins tomorrow. The government will do its utmost to ensure a Chuseok without price worries. Above all, we will manage shopping basket prices as our top priority.
A key part of the holiday is preparing the chare, ancestral rite table, a feast of traditional dishes. Despite broader inflation, the government reports the cost for this specific meal has actually decreased. According to the Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation, the average cost is just under 200,000 won, or about $150, a 1.8% drop from last year. But the view from the ground suggests a disconnect between official data and the prices shoppers are actually seeing. According to Seoul City, Garak Mall here, located near a wholesale market, is the cheapest place to shop when preparing for ancestral rite table this Chuseok. It shows strength, especially in the produce section. However, vendors say that even at a price known for its value, business is slow, citing both high prices and the extended holiday keeping people away.
Business is bad. Fruit prices are so high that not many people are coming. And because the holiday is long, I wonder if people went traveling abroad. They're just not coming to the market.
Shoppers notice the difference in specific aisles.
Things like meat don't seem to have a big price difference, but I think vegetables and fruit have gone up a bit compared to usual.
Meanwhile, starting Wednesday until the 5th, traditional markets are running a promotion where consumers who purchase domestic agricultural, livestock, and fishery products can receive a rebate of up to 30% of their purchase amount in onnuri gift certificates, capped at 20,000 won per person, in efforts to further boost smaller businesses while taking burden off Chuseok shoppers. 김도현, Arirang News.
A new exhibition in Seoul running through January brings together works from one of Korea's most acclaimed contemporary artists, Ibul, with pieces that blur the lines between history, technology, and human imagination. Pyongyang takes us there.
Step inside, and it feels like entering another universe. A giant silver airship floats above, while a vast mirrored installation pulls visitors into a space of infinite reflections. It's disorienting, playful, and mesmerizing all at once. This is the world of Ibul, one of the most influential figures in Korean contemporary art. Visitors were taken in by the complexity of her work.
It's pretty amazing how complex some of the structures are, and when you walk through, there's a place where there's all mirrors and you get very disorientated. So it's kind of dystopian, the way that some of the pieces melt down, and it's kind of like this weird city that's almost like set in the future kind of vibes.
Glistening surfaces, fractured structures, bunkers and towers all converge into an experience that feels suspended between worlds. Through these works, Ibul examines shifting ties between humanity and technology, and nature and civilization, reflecting on the past and present while imagining possible futures. Ibul first burst onto the scene in the 1980s with radical performances, suspending her own body from ropes or parading through city streets in elaborate costumes. This brought her international recognition in the following decade, along with the nickname Yeonjeonsa, or warrior woman, of Korean contemporary art. But today, she has gone far beyond that nickname.
What makes her remarkable is that she transcended labels like Korean, Asian, or female artist, and has presented a wide-ranging body of work that reflects deeply on human history and culture.
Now in her 60s, Ibul is recognized as one of the biggest names in Korean modern art, with exhibitions at MoMA, the Venice Biennale, and New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. From warrior to world-renowned visionary, Ibul has redefined the boundaries of modern art here in Korea. Her retrospective from 1998 to now runs here in Seoul until January before traveling overseas. Hyunyoung, Arirang News.
That brings us to the end of weekly news highlights for the first week of October. Thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your weekend.